This episode of Authentic Lives is in English. Enjoy!
To the ends I'll run, getting away from what is too hard to be with. Running, exhausted, repeat, collapse. Have to earn all of it. Money, love, acceptance. Have to be seen, take up space. Talk. What about this and this? Can you see me? Can you hear me? So much energy, so much time. Not wasted, but misdirected. Not bad or good, just misunderstood. The parts that took me this far were just trying to help. And they still can. But they can take a break. They are not the drivers of my soul, just part of the whole.
Hello and welcome to Authentic Lives, a podcast in which we talk about the intentionality of living authentic experiences. I am Estelle Campos, and looking for this kind of experiences, today I have a cup of tea with Nell DeVito. We are going to a deep immersion in a self-discovery journey that led her to embody her true passion and purpose. She designs and facilitates embodied immersive experience that enable humans to make meaningful connections with each other and themselves and emulate their beautifully wild and resilient home, Earth. She's currently the COO of Cities Reimagined, a human-centered design firm and a wilderness solo guide working with female leaders in the social impact space to regenerate and thrive so that their work is sustainable. We will now go in a deep breath in her journey that shows that her heart is most full when she's in nature with her family and friends, connecting to the beauty and majesty that surround us at all times. Nell, it's such a pleasure to have you here. Can you share with us a glimpse of who you are and the story you unfold with us today?
Oh, it's so good to be here. I'm so glad to be, sharing space with you and to share a story. So my story is a wild one. I was born November 20th, 1980 in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. I'm the first of 8 children. My mom's name is Vicky. My dad's name is John. I was the oldest girl. I have 6 brothers and 1 sister, so there's a lot of us. I started off in the Shenandoah Valley, and then we had to move to Washington when I was outside of Washington, D.C. when I was 5 for my dad's work. And it feels pretty important to share this part. When I was 8 years old, my dad was involved in an accident. He was an iron worker, and he was inspecting a building, and the beam that was lifting him up fell out of the chains, and my dad fell, and then the beam crashed and crushed all of the bones in his legs. So my dad was, it's a miracle he survived. But 2, he walked again 6 months later after having. Impressive. Yeah, it's very, 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 very wild. And so I had this so after my dad had this accident, we were he couldn't work anymore, obviously. And so we moved back to the land that my parents had bought before they got married, which is this beautiful 50 acres at the base of the Allegheny Mountains, with 2 spring-fed ponds and creeks and pine forests and deciduous forests and fields and just the most beautiful place in the world. And so we were able to move there and live there. And that's really where I grew up, on these 50 acres of just like some of the most beautiful. I mean, I've lived and worked all over the place, and it's just the most beautiful place and the most serene place. And we weren't allowed to be inside very often. Some of that I think because my mom would have like lost her mind if she had, all these kids inside all the time. But also my parents were very intentional about the importance of being outside and being with nature. I just have very clear memories of my childhood when we moved there when I was 9, 10 years old. I was just outside all the time, collecting rocks, watching frogs, watching butterflies, climbing trees, making forts. And also because I was the only girl, I was just like really rough and ready to go all the time with the boys. I could roll. I was active. So I was kind of a dangerous kid. I had the nickname Dangerous Nell. And my godmother said, Dangerous Nell, that's her name. And I can just see her. She's like a gangster. She's like a bandit. She's got a cigar in one hand and a pistol in the other, and you better watch out. So there was always this kind of like, what this kid is potentially a problem, but like a good one, but like she's wild, like she's a little feral. And my mother, God bless her, was not equipped to raise a girl that showed up with that expression. My mother is 74 years old. She's very traditional. She's very religious. Like the idea of what a girl should be and then what a woman should be was very different than my natural expression. It's a lot of about control and like calm down, and I need you to be still. I need you to be quiet. Like all of these things that I talk about, like good girls do. And I just wasn't I wasn't a fucking good girl. I wasn't. I asked a lot of questions. Like, why do I have to do this? Why are you telling me to do? Like, I had this sense of inner authority that I can look back now and feel, and I'm embodied in it now. But as a young child, so imagine a 3-year-old with that energy. And you've got all their kids around, and you've got this little kid basically like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I don't need your help. I'm going to move really quick. I was a lot, but my dad did know how to be with me, and he encouraged it. So I had these two parents that had very different approaches to me, and my mother wanted me to sit and wear dresses and smile and, do all these things. And I just wasn't that. I was dirty. I wanted to wear shorts or no clothes at all. I wanted to like be dirt. Yeah, I was a wild kid. And so that kind of, that was the beginning of my, I would say when I tune into it intuitively, it was probably around between the ages of 4 and 6, where I really started feeling like I was trapped in some kind of cage, and like figuring out that I had to perform, that my authentic self, my true self, was not welcome in most spaces because it made people uncomfortable. I could feel that it made people uncomfortable, and because I wanted to be accepted for my own survival, right? For my mother, it's not like she was doing it on purpose, but as a child, you want the approval and love of your parents. Yes. And so in order to get that love and approval from her, I really that was the beginning of it. And then when I got to school, that was just a whole other level of like being around boys that weren't my brothers or my cousins or my brother's friends. Like, little boys were intimidated by me, and they were not nice to me. And I was bullied in elementary school, and teachers had a hard time with me too. And I can look back and say, like, because I was a classroom teacher, like, yeah, it was challenging, but the system of public education here in the United States, which is, where I live and where I grew up, it's not equipped for kids that are active and good products. I wasn't a traditional good product. And so from the moment I entered school, I just felt that was really the beginning of me maybe detaching from my body, really detaching from my true self, and learning very quickly, because I'm smart, and because there were certain gifts, like in terms of performance, like I can perform and I can turn it on like that. I figured out how to get approval. I figured out how to move forward, how to, I figured out how to work within the system, but it felt fucking awful.
This is so amazing that you realized in such a young age. I imagine your process to go back to realize that you are already doing this when you enter school. Mm-hmm. So crazy now. It's so interesting to think about. And I think many of us, like for women, for those like really empowered women, it's a chance to think, like, when did we start pretending?
Yeah, and there was something, appealing about pretending, because I knew that I could, it was like, I don't think I was conscious of it. Like, oh, this is a role that I'm really good at performing.
Definitely you were not. At that moment, of course not.
No.
You were adapting.
Exactly. And I figured it out. I also was raised in a very strict, Catholic family, right? And so that has its own idea of what women should be and what women should do. And I have no disrespect for my parents' belief, but it never felt good. I never felt good going into church. I never felt good. It just felt inauthentic. I knew at a very young age, I was like, this is not for me. I don't feel good here. This doesn't feel... I never had any kind of desire to go to it just felt awful, and I didn't have the space in the family that I grew up in to no, I don't want to go to church. That just wasn't an option. And also I saw my siblings and I saw my parents having these incredible spiritual experiences at church or in fellowship with other people, and I was just I don't get it. So there was a performance there though too, showing up and doing everything. I don't know if you were raised Catholic, but the ritual.
Yes, I was also raised Catholic. I studied in a Catholic school my whole life.
Yeah. So there's I did like the smell of the incense. I liked the theater of it. I liked the robes. But I didn't understand why women weren't up there. I didn't understand why women couldn't be altar servers. I didn't understand. I remember asking my parents just why aren't there women? Why isn't there ever any women up there? And it being meted with well, that's just not a question that you need to be asking. So to distill it down, at a very young age, I learned to shut down who I really was, because it wasn't safe or accepted to be that. And I was conscious that I was shutting it down, but I had to be a part of the system. And so grade school, school was hard, but then when I got to college, I realized that I had, when I was funding it, right? My parents didn't have the money to support me. So I had to get, loans, and I had to work 2 jobs. And I found when I got to college, another level of performance that I could kind of fall into that kept me from dealing with who I really was and who I really wanted to be. It was a distraction. What I found was I was a hyperachiever. So in high school, I kind of you know, I didn't really try very hard. I was really smart. I could get by kind of doing the bare minimum. But when I got to college, I was like, well, one, I'm paying for this. So this is like my money going into this. I want to do a good job, and I'm actually really interested in this. And I was really engaged with my studies. I was studying government, international politics, and minoring in Spanish. So I was like in it. And I also realized that like by working, I could escape the pain of not really allowing myself to be myself and all the pain I had around years of doing that. So I dove in to achieving and hitting target, you know, just like working 2 jobs, you know, getting all my schoolwork done, getting straight A's, and then also partying really hard. I partied really hard style. It was like I worked hard and I played hard and there was no rest. I waited tables. I worked at the Department of Justice. I took, you know, a full course load. I was paying for school. I was, you know, and I was thriving in some ways. But then I very, very specifically remember like when I was 20 years old, things started to fall apart. At that point, I was really abusing substances, certainly alcohol, and some other things. And I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time, going to university. I was like, it was like this, I have to get out of here. I cannot do this anymore. I cannot do this. Where am I going to go? And I had gone on a winter like study term in Europe. And that had really opened my eyes, like, okay, I love travel. It was the first time I had, other than Mexico, like gone anywhere. And I had gone all over. And I was like, well, what if I went back to the UK? What if I studied? So instead of like, I didn't have the skills to be like, what is it that's really going on? What is it? Why do I have to get out? Like, you know, like I was not conscious. I started another pattern, which was like, I'm going to go here. And so then that was a good 12 years style of me literally not living anywhere for more than 8 to 12 months. And then moving to either another country or another city. Just zipping. That was another nickname of mine, the zip. Like just moving real fast. So yeah, it was just like this incremental development of an addiction to doing. So 1999, I left home. I left the Valley. I was like, I will never, ever come back here. I hated the country. I was like, I hate the country. I need to go to cities. I need to be in the city. That's where successful people go, right? I was in the cage. I was in the machine. I was like, this is what success is, how I've been raised, like being in the middle of nowhere, like, this is awful. I need to go. I mean, and part of that's just being young, right? You wanna have
explore.
adventures.
You wanna see things. Yes.
Yeah, you want to see things. But I was doing it at a rate of like, I mean, I look back now, I'm like, I have no idea. Just like the speed at which I was moving. So from 1999, when I was 19 years old, to 33, I didn't live anywhere for more than a year. I was just going from place to place to place. And so I went over to England and I studied there. And then I got into a relationship with someone. And I had never had like a boyfriend before because I was such a force. Like most men were my age were really freaked out by me, or that was my interpretation. Like, I don't know what to do with that. Like, like I could have like casual hookups and like whatever, but like I was very reluctant to get in a relationship. So anyway, I got in a relationship with this person and ended up staying in a relationship with that person, ended up marrying that person. And it was not a good situation for a variety of reasons that I don't want to get into right now. But like, that was just another symptom or not a symptom, like a reaction to, I don't want to deal with what's going on really within myself. And this person is something that I can.
You had another one to take care, so you were putting your effort in another thing. So you manage job, you manage moving, you manage go around. So now relationship. So a man, what can I do with this?
100%. It was something to manage. 100%. Everything was about, and I don't know if you're familiar with IFS, internal family systems, which is a type of therapy, but there are these different roles that we have that theory talks about, and one of them is the manager. Like I am the manager, right? Like when I get activated or when I get triggered or when I'm feeling out of control. I had a manager situation in the past 2 weeks, right? Because I lost my dog and it was painful. And so I was like, okay, what can I manage to keep myself from being with myself? Even though I've been at this, right? I've been at this practice for a long time. It still comes up. You're never done. You know this.
Yes,
You're never done.
I know this.
Yeah. And so I had this marriage. I ended up marrying this person and, living in the UK on and off for 7 years. And I also spent time working in Ecuador because Spanish is my second language, and it's really the language of my soul. I would prefer to speak Spanish all the time. And so I lived there, and I worked within the field of human rights. I worked within the field of immigration here in the United States. I just was always choosing these really intense work and life situations where I would abandon myself because I couldn't be with myself.
What I'm feeling here now is that, so I use the word feeling, is that you wouldn't allow you to feel anything. You had to be in doing mode, doing, achieving what's success. I want to be successful, but then what is it, And your body told you for a couple of times that there is something else that we need, and then you just move to a different pattern.
100%. Yeah, like I don't know. I can't deal with that right now. Like it was always this feeling of, and you meditate and you do these things. Like there was I had not been taught that, right? Like, thoughts are real. Thoughts are real and they happen. Feelings are real and they happen, and nothing's permanent. But there was this sense of like, if I feel all the pain of essentially having separated myself from who I really am, and I'm in this cage, partly of my own making, but partly from society and the systems and the structures that put women in cages. Like if I sat with that, I legitimately thought I would lose my mind because the pain was so great. Because it would come up and I was like, I can't deal with this. I gotta go, I gotta go get another, I gotta go do this. I cannot sit with the fact that actually I'm so sad because I'm not in myself. I'm not with myself. I'm not, because it's not safe to be there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I had learned very young because of some things that happened to me as a little girl. I'll be transparent with you. I was abused. I was sexually abused as a little girl. Okay. And when that happens to you at a young age, you learn that it's not safe for you to be who you are because there's a part of you that thinks you brought that on to yourself. So that was a real big part of it too. I feel like that's an important part for me to share, and I've healed around it, so I can talk about it without the trauma has been processed. But that is a really big part of why I could not be with myself, because when I had been my full self, that had happened
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. And I think that was really, that's a really big piece of it, is when you don't feel safe to be who you are, then you find all kinds of other versions of yourself to be that aren't true. And what happens is it catches up with you and doesn't look the same for everybody. But essentially, after I had this really intense working so I moved back to the States, and I got into teaching, and then I moved, and then I was like, I had this call to like come back to Virginia. I was like, what the hell am I going to do there? Like, there's nothing for like I have this extensive education. I've been working in human rights. I've been working, like doing these big things and doing this work on 4 different continents. What am I going to do in my rural ass, like small town that I'm from, the small place I'm from, Virginia? What am I going to do? And so it turned out that there was the federal government had started these programs for undocumented children, right? Kids were being picked up on the border. I'm sure that you guys know about. Yes. And they were putting them in facilities, right? And so they had this contract. So anyway, I got this job to start a bilingual education program for children that were undocumented.
So just before you tell, just contextualize. So you were around 33. Where were
I was this was like 29. By the time I was 27, I had lived and worked on 4 continents and doing advocacy, activism, human rights work, education. Like I was just on a mission I look back now, I'm like, I don't really know what I was doing. I was just in just go mode. And I was in survival mode.
Okay, good. And were you still married to the guy?
I was. Okay. I got married when I was 24, almost 25.
Okay, and then you moved to the US together. You and your English husband.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We moved back to the States together to Boston. And then, eventually I got this opportunity to work in Virginia, and I was like, I want to go home. Okay. And so we moved back here. But that job was the most intense experience of my life. The amount of traumatic things that I saw, the amount of stories of the children who come to the United States without papers, without parents, like just intense. And Nell was on a mission to help everybody, and certainly wasn't taking care of myself and was neglecting myself and being consumed by the needs and wants of others, because that was safer than actually having to save Nell. And at this time, right, in my early 30s, I started having these nightmares of being myself and holding a baby and being on a train going across this bridge, like in Harry Potter, that bridge, right? And it going really fast, and the baby hanging from my arms, hanging off while the train is just charging, going full steam ahead across the bridge, and the baby falling, and the baby, right? I can see now that was me.
You were the baby.
Yeah, I used to have so many dreams about having these babies that were starving, and I knew I needed to feed them, but I couldn't find the food to feed them, and then they would just die. Okay. That was me. So at 32, I just really started to experience a really deep sadness, and my body just collapsed, and I had to stop working at the detention center with these kids. And in that time of forced rest, all this shame came up, like, well, if I'm not working, then who am I? I have to contribute. What am I doing? Da-da-da-da-da. And subsequently in that time period too, I took a break, I had to, I reconciled my relationship with substances and I wasn't drinking at all. And I started seeing that the marriage that I was in was extremely unhealthy. It was not a good situation. And within 8 months, it was very clear that I needed to go. That's a story for another time, but it was just this very clear, you cannot stay here. This is not good. If you stay, bad, it's only going to get worse. And it was like this self-preservation. So that ended, and it was very, very hard. And that was really, it was like this period of like 2013. It was a fucking hard year because everything I thought I wanted to be, everything I thought I was, everything I thought I had, it was just very clear, like, this is not who I am. This is not who I am. Who the fuck am I? If I'm not doing these things, if I don't have this marriage, if I don't have this job, if I don't have this salary, if I don't have this, who the fuck am I? And so I had to, that was the beginning, man, of like the real deep dive. 33 is a magical year for a lot of people. I think that's like the year that Jesus, right?
I'm 33 now. It's happening things, so let's see how it goes.
Like it was hard, but I call it my breakdown to breakthrough. It was like I'm the type of person that had to have a total break. Everything broke. Everything fell apart. And then that's when things started to shift and reemerge, and like really leaning into, like, really discovering who I was. And I went, I was really, really into therapy and working through my trauma and understanding the biochemistry of trauma and what trauma actually does to your biochemistry, right? Like so much. And so now I can look back at like the zip Nell of like zipping. That's neuroscience. That was a dopamine hit. Like you get, when you experience trauma, the brain becomes addicted to having experiences where the dopamine and the adrenaline gets released. You become addicted to it.
It was your sport.
Yes. And so I had a lot of that was a dark time, but it was like, I look back at it now and I'm so glad it happened, because that was the beginning of me relearning who I was and really learning. I mean, it's so interesting, like I talked to people that knew me then, they were like, well, you've always been authentic. And of course, there's always been a level to me of like how I show up that's just like zero bullshit. Like that could never be suppressed. But like what I really wanted, what I really cared about, what I really wanted to talk about, I had shut down and repressed because that was not acceptable. And so it was a real journey. I mean, it's been 10 years now of me learning who I actually am, what is really important to me, what do I really need, what do I need? And when we've been talking about this a lot with the bioleadership, like when you are in the social impact space, you have to be in good shape because that work is so intense. And like, so that was really me. That's really when I started leaning into like the way that I am supposed to be of services in this world is to go through this journey and heal myself so that I am in a position to help other people who are in the social impact change space be able to take care of themselves so that the work is able to continue. Because if everybody is just exhausted, right? Like it's burnout. And then you can't do the work, and we need the people doing the work. So that's really my mission now, is to like, how can I take my experience and what I've learned and what I know works in terms of tactics and practices and tools and sharing stories that can spark a light, you know, either it's like an aha or like, oh, I'm curious about that, tell me more, or Nell, do you want to talk to me on my podcast about authentic lives? You know, I'm not scripted or anything. I don't have like a snazzy, I'm exploring, right? Like
This is your story. This is it. I will tell you what you just told me, because you will see after. So what happened here now is that you changed from the beginning. I'm letting you speak freely what you want. And I'm not sure if you hear this after the recorder is launched, but from the beginning now until the breakdown to breakthrough is really chaotic. You can barely understand what was happening, the things that was going on up and down, and it goes up and down, and then now you are going in a straight line and calm, and you have a point. We can feel, the people who are listening, I am listening and paying attention to you, that you are calmer and you have something that you know what you're doing, or maybe you don't know everything, but you allow yourself to discover this. Mm-hmm. And this is so magical, because you realize the need of caring of yourself, of mm-hmm. allowing your own space, so it's possible that you give something to others. But first you need to be in a good position, a good health, your own. And it's visible 100%. Or in audio, it's perceptible how it goes. It's so amazing.
That's a really interesting observation, because it was total chaos. I mean, it was total chaos, my younger life. And it's been a reordering, right? And a restructuring. And that might sound weird to some people, that like reordering and restructuring creates, you know, I had to get out of the cage that I had been put in by society and by my own actions. And upon leaving it, right, I was able to restructure and reorder my life with these kind of holistic, nourishing practices, right, that have regulated my central nervous system to be able to then be who I really am, which is someone who's been through a lot, who has done a lot of things, who doesn't fucking give up, who cares deeply about other people, who loves being present, I love being alive.
This is amazing.
I love being alive, man. It's the best. Even the shit. Like yesterday, you know, I was like totally spinning on something. I was like, well, even this is okay, you know, because like my heart's beating and I'm breathing and I've got my water here and I have a bed, you know, it's just, the brain is amazing, and it's really amazing when the brain gets settled, then the heart space can really open up and be the tool that, the heart is a great tool. I'm not trying to reduce the heart, but the heart is a center of intelligence. And when you can get still.
This is amazing.
Can you feel it?
Yes, exactly. I want to point it out two things that I think is precious from this conversation. The first thing is that how you are aware of your own traumas and when they happen and what was like your own role on doing it to yourself, and of course you have like huge external implications also. But I think for many of us, I'll include myself in it, we don't realize that we're masking things and making things and trying to pretend to be accepted in whatever it is. This is something that's really amazing. And also the second point is a question for you, actually. What you just did is showing me that you have a huge sense of gratitude. So the question is, you think, when do you think you become aware of this, that you're grateful for the little things that you have surrounding you?
I felt it when I was a child, and then it went away. I remember having very vivid moments as a little girl of like, this is, wow. Like the forest, it's always in nature, right? For me. You know, I mean, like the most monumental, but also just, I remember even, and then as a teenager, there were snippets of it. Like I remember being with my best friend and looking out at the mountains and watching the sunset and being like, oh, I love you. And I love, you know, like these moments of like when I could be centered. But then it felt, you know, for many years, like I couldn't feel those things because I was moving so quickly that I wasn't allowing myself to have those experiences, because the fear was if I stopped, I would have to feel. And I thought that the pain was too great and that it would crush me. But the reality is it doesn't crush us. When we sit with it and we are with it and we let it move through ourselves and take care of ourselves while we're doing it, it's all very hard. It's simple and it's hard. You know what I'm saying? Like breathing is a gift and it's simple to do, but it's hard to develop the practice with the discipline, at least for me. But I know that it works. I know that sleep is important. You know, like these are all fundamentals. But, you know, we live in this world where just like the fundamentals are almost like a luxury. Like, I just want to take a vacation so I can sleep. The fuck? You got to take a vacation so you can sleep? Like, you just need to sleep. Like, but so I'm going off on a tangent, but I think I have those moments with every day that goes by, like just.
This is amazing. I can feel it. We're breathing together. This is so good.
So this is the work.
Yes.
It's not something I can package I mean, I could, and maybe I will, but this is what I'm supposed to be doing, is like sharing the story, refining the story, being with people like you, and even with people that aren't conscious, you know, like, because you can get with someone real quick. I mean, I love going to the grocery store and like having somebody behind me be totally unconscious and like losing their shit and turning to them. Hi, how are you? I really like your shirt. What? Your shirt? I really like your shirt. Oh, your shirt. Yeah. Oh. You know, just like having those moments of humanity with people, man, that's a gift.
This is so amazing. So increase awareness of the daily, like small moments. So yeah, we are having this connection and made, but it's good if you go talk to strangers and see what happens, do small experiments. It's really amazing.
That's exactly what it is. It's little experiments, it's little practices. It's a nano practice, right? It's like when you can put it into practice. And for me, because I'm such a people person, like it's not really going to work for me to like sit by myself a lot of time and like, I do the breath work and I have like my meditation practice, but that's also a meditation, right? That's the yoga of being a human.
Yeah,
That's
putting
like,
things in practice. It's like, have you learned something? You only know if you put in practice. How would you address in the real world,
Yes. And people, the reality is like, this is my dad coming through. My dad taught me this. When you can be with yourself and be with people as your full, like, that's all you have to do right now.
Yeah, this is so amazing. I have a final question. So we finish this. I think we got to a point here. So
this is so much fun. You're the best.
Yeah. So what I want to ask you, maybe it's a bit tough, is after you discover who Nell is, what was your biggest finding toward other people? Because you're helping people now. What do you think like maybe shocked you? Then how is this going on? And can I do so? Like the manager now, how did she went to it?
We need to execute and implement. I've got a plan, and we're going to get it done. That's such a great question, Sal. I think it's just how many people are doing what I did. Like how many people are avoiding their true selves, not because they don't want to, but because they don't know how to meet themselves.
This is so amazing. They
don't know how to meet themselves. And it's like a homecoming of self. Because when you can be with it, all of it, we're not all going to be happy and positive all the time. And there's like great beauty in pain and suffering. And right? Like in Buddhism, like what this is like, the central tenets is like, suffering is fucking inevitable. So like buckle up. Because you're gonna suffer, but like being conscious of the suffering, knowing that it's temporal, and that on the other side of it, if you can sit with it and be curious about the pain, like pain. I've had a lot of pain, and I see a lot of people in pain that are scared to be with it, like they're really scared to be with it. And so what I, do in my professional work, right? I'm a COO of a team. I manage, 7, 8 people right now. And like my role with them is to like, okay, let's get centered. How are you doing as a human being? Before we dive into this work, we need to address you as a whole human being. And that shows up in my work as an executive coach too, right? Like, how are you? No, how are you really?
Yes. This is so amazing, because we are living automatically. So how to stop it?
And we're not machines. We shouldn't. Exactly. We're not mechanical.
So live the automatic pilot, and start to living. This is really impressive. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, I think it's hard. It is hard being human, but I like it.
I think this is the beauty of it, because it's hard. We have so many opportunities to do so many things, but you have to embrace it and go also for the hard parts.
Well, this is resilience, like this is what I teach. I do workshops on resilience, and I'm going to be doing one for the Bioleadership Fellowship in August, like the whole community. So like talking about resilience, like resilience isn't built as a result of having an easy life. Resilience is built from being in the shit and getting through to the other side. That's what I'm really talking about. Like this whole conversation is about how my resilience muscle was built, and then becoming conscious of that resilience muscle being built, and now knowing that it is my absolute responsibility to help other people build their resilience muscles, because we have really important work to do.
Yes. Now, this is so inspiring, like for me, and I think for many people who will be listening, like to think about my own traumas, my own triggers, how with the things that I have passed already, how can I help others, and how can I start this movement to have more conscient people surrounding me and spread this for the strangers also, the ones that I don't know yet. But I think there's no strangers, we just haven't met yet, so this is really amazing.
That's it, my friend. This is such a beautiful thing. I can't wait to see how this evolves and grows. And yeah, you're already doing it, right?
Yes,
like you're already. It's already in the works. It's already happened. And it's like these kinds of conversations
I'll just
are life.
I'm sorry.
Are life-giving.
Yeah,
No,
so
it's okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I want to just say thank you and end this. Do you want to say like your final words for us? Like a blessing of dangerous now?
Listen to the callings of your soul. They will never lead you astray. They will not pull you away from anything that's real and true and full of love. Go within, go deep, love yourself, love others, breathe, and be.
Whoa, I had goosebumps all over after this talk. I now invite you to try to think about your own traumas, triggers, things that you are trying to escape from, and how your story helps you to help others. How can you have more people in a higher state of conscious surrounding yourself? And then spread this feeling even to the ones you haven't met yet. This is amazing, right? Can you do it? And that's it for today, guys. Did you like the talk we had? Share your feelings and reflections about this episode with us. You can find us at the Instagram at Podcast Authentic Lives. And remember, your own journey of authenticity may begin today. See you in the next episode.